human beings are incapable of not having problems. You will always find problems with your life to obsess about and torture yourself over. I realize that most of the world is misunderstood. I get to show people things like drinking hot cow blood, straight from the cow. Very few people just wake up in the morning and want to make themselves so viscerally uncomfortable. We like things easy.
The guy that we have on our podcast today is borderline insane, but in the best possible way. I'm a huge fan of traveling and getting out of your comfort zone. I've been chased by ladyboys in Cambodia. I've been lost without my phone in small towns in South Korea. And I've watched some pretty gross shows in Thailand. And to a lot of my friends, I'm considered crazy. But to our guest today, Mike Corey, these experiences might seem boring.
Human beings are designed to suffer, man. Like, human soul needs a puzzle to solve. And if you don't give it puzzles, it'll create them in your head and you'll yell at people on social media or invent, right?
From raiding a baboon camp with Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania, turning a truck into weapons with Mayans, trading a crocodile in exchange for a bed in the Congo, and almost getting shot dead in a cursed pyramid in Turkey, Mike has used the world as his therapy for overcoming his biggest fears. Mike is known online as Fearless and Far. He has over 2 million subscribers on YouTube and now has a TV show called Uncharted Adventure, which has been nominated for 2 Emmy Awards. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, Mike Corey. How old are you?
How old am I? Dude, it's my birthday in 4 days.
Happy early birthday.
Is age an important thing?
Age is how I start a lot of my interviews, actually.
Can I ask why? I'm 38, by the way.
I'm not sure. I was always fat. So when I was going through like a harder period in my life, I would always look up 40-somethings, 50-somethings, 60-somethings of the world. What advice would you give to your 20-year-old self or your 18-year-old self? Or like, what's it like to be 40? What's it like to be 50? What things you worry about at that age that you didn't worry about before, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And so as I've interviewed people on the street, my reconnaissance, how you get to know that person's value or what they have to say is by the age. Where some people say, what do you do for a living? And you say, okay, I'm a CEO of a big company. And now people think that person, what they're going to say is important. Mm-hmm. It's almost like if I'm listening to an 80-year-old or a 40-year-old or 20-year-old, how I think of them and what I listen to and what I retain depends on how I relate to that age.
I think that, so I'm turning 38 in 4 days. I think that with age, what's interesting is when we grow up, we're in grade school, and so age is really important, right?
Yeah.
If someone's 1 year older than you, it's a big deal, right? Mm-hmm. Like I remember my sister being 1 year younger, and I was like, oh, I don't want to hang out with her, she's too young. And then you get older and no one really cares, especially in the travel world. Coming from college, from university, then going and backpacking and hanging out with people who were 45, 23, and not really ever speaking about that, and realizing that wisdom can come with years, but it's more like total life lived. And some people can pack a lot of life into 25 years, mm-hmm. and some not so much into 55, mm-hmm. but they can be 55 or 25 and still be just as wise. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I like to think maybe I'm more wise than the average 38-year-old. I don't know. We'll see. But it's. I think it comes from just, time on the streets, right?
Yeah. What does it feel like to be your age?
It feels the same. I remember my dad once said to me on one of his birthdays, he's like, I look in the mirror and I can't believe the age I am because I still feel like I'm 30. Mm-hmm. And also I remember my grandmother forgetting her age at one point, and I couldn't fathom when I was 19 or 18 that someone could forget what age they were. But even for me, I'm like, am I turning 37 or 38? I don't think it matters, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think especially for men, there's less pressure on a number. For women, I think there's much more pressure. The society puts it on. But for men, if you have your shit together, does the age matter? Not as much.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I like to get started with that. It's like a good, I find that the how old you and the what does it feel like to be your age is a really good way to get someone settled in. Mm-hmm. At least that's what I've learned from my experience of interviewing people.
How old are you?
I'm 24.
24?
Yeah.
You baby.
Yeah. Most people think I'm 31. So what's nice is like I'll always get 31 for the next 7 years, mm-hmm. hopefully, unless something happens. But yeah, thanks for being on the show. And I actually first learned about your channel because I was doing travel videos. I mean, I still incorporate travel a lot into my videos. It's not at the forefront, like you wouldn't typically notice it at the thumbnail, but you would notice it in the video. And yeah, I think your video started popping up on my algorithm a few years ago, and I saw the one in the castle in Turkey.
Oh, nice. That's a good one.
The tribes, all of that. So especially that you were Canadian. When I found that out, I'm like, every time I find a Canadian, I'm like, yes, I need to follow this person.
And not too far from here, right?
Yeah.
I've got some weird content, man, and I'm always so interested on how people found me, because there's hanging by hooks, there's getting shot at by the military police, there's eating baboons with the Hadza, all this kind of stuff. So people form a judgment on who I am, whether I'm like a reckless asshole or whether I don't know, just based on what content they see. But I've been doing this job for 12 years, bro. Like I'm travel content creator OG.
Yeah.
There's not many of us left. And with that, like we've seen the whole passage from blogging originally to now it's like short form content, all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah. But the interesting thing for me, like what really caught my attention is it's not the adventures necessarily that you put a focus on. Like, yes, you do, but it's also the self-improvement aspect. It's about your life, about fears, about confidence, and how you're trying to empower people to get over their own fears.
Exactly.
And so as someone who's like extremely passionate about self-improvement and helping others, I thought that was amazing that you're tying all that in. So, you know, I did my research and I learned, I was listening to a few podcasts, reading a few things about you. In grade 4, you can correct me if I'm mistaken, but in grade 4, in your French class, you're asked to speak in front of the class. Your teacher asked you to speak in front of the class.
Basically what happened is I had this teacher, I was a shy kid, a normal kid, and I got framed on the playground once by some kid who committed a crime, and then I had a family pet die, and for whatever reason, the teacher just thought it'd be really good for me to be brought up in front of the class and explain these horrible things to the class. Anyway, that was my first experience public speaking. And maybe we can all remember our first experience, but for me, I have no really recollection of any time in front of a class besides then where I had to explain why my family pets all died and all these crazy things. So that set in stone this attitude of being judged in front of in front of people.
Yeah.
And for the other one, someone did something on the playground that was quite horrible. Everyone thought it was me. The whole school hated me, and that just set in stone that when you're in front of a group, it's bad. And then I just lived my entire life, for most of my life, like the world was this classroom, right? And that's why the brand is called Fearless and Far, is because these things that happen, whether that's insignificant, these things. Some people have horrible things, all these different magnitudes, but the reality is you're a ball of clay, you get dents, right? And then you have to live with those dents. And just like a piece of paper, when it's folded, you can't unfold paper. There's always going to be a crease. And so whether it's, again, my circumstance or someone else's, it still affects you growing up. And so for me, my journey through fear has been one of the most terrifying and magical of my life, where I've learned fearlessness is not a lack of fear. It's feeling the fear and still continuing forward, right? That these things that happen to us when we're younger, they can create these phobias, these anxieties, and we fight them back. We use force and we try to drive them out. Maybe we take medications, maybe we do terrible things to our body or our minds. But the reality is, the second you say, you know what, this thing that I'm scared of, if it's with me and I see it's trying to protect me, and I treat it as a friend, then dude, your world changes so much. So I went from, being scared to make a peep in front of a crowd to a TV host, YouTuber with 2 million subs, podcast host, all kinds of shit, right?
530 million views on the channel.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
It's crazy.
What was the culminating point of that phobia? Did it get progressively worse to a point where you're like, man, I gotta do something about this?
Oh, for sure. There's so many. I would have panic attacks in grade school, and I didn't know what it was. I would just, when the teacher's getting you to like read in front of the class, and you have the book, and you're like, and that just makes her pick you even more. And so I would have like panic attacks. And I remember I was even in university. Sorry, I'm taking your notes now.
Studying the questions.
No. I want to give you an example. I was trying to do a presentation. I had notes just like this, and I remember trying to read the notes. My hands were shaking so much, I couldn't read the notes. And I just I'm not going to ball these up, but I balled them up, threw them, And I was so paranoid they're not too bread.
You're good.
I was so paranoid all of the time. I would rehearse so many times before I knew it all in my head. And the fact that my hands betrayed me, and I just threw them away because it was making everyone realize how nervous I was. That allowed me to then never use notes again. So all of these different things, again, seem at the time terrible, but then after, if any of that wouldn't have happened, I wouldn't be here today, right? Yeah. Like, trauma is a fascinating thing because if you experience none, I don't think it molds you or makes you try harder than someone who's experienced a lot. It's almost a blessing to have some of it because it allows you to want to fight back, to push, to prove yourself, right? To grow beyond the walls of the cage that were built. And so with that, I think it's quite a beautiful thing to see these things as opportunities to rise to the occasion, right? And for me, it's been done through travel. And even my first big trip I didn't just wake up one morning and be like, you know what, I'm going to travel to the other side of the world because life's better over there. No, I took a car crash, a breakup, really bad breakup, death of a family member. My first grandparent died, and I was just in such a bad spot that I saw a poster on the wall that was like, do you want to go to the other side of the world? And I was like, well, that side of the world's way better than this friggin' side of the world. So I decided to do that with a friend, and that's a whole other story. But basically, I think a problem with humans is that we never just change, right? Something bad has to happen. The leg has to be swept, and we trip and fall, smash our face on the asphalt, and then we'll make a change.
Yeah.
And that's what happened to me.
So for you, it was that trip that really made, because the way you're talking about and the way you're talking about it can only, in theory, be seen in retrospect. Like, it's not like in the moment in grade school, you're thankful that everything happened. This is you looking back on it. You're happy that all those experiences made you who you are today.
Yeah.
Was it that, the breakup, the car crash, the death of a family member, and then that decision to go on a solo trip, was that when your perspective started to change? Did you grow up more negative or more fearful? And was that really the turning point?
No, I grew up extremely fearful. I would even argue that I'm still probably more fearful than most people now. But that allows me to do my job and keep safe in situations that I can only describe, as you've seen, as pure chaos. Because I think, okay, what could go wrong? Let's try to mitigate those risks. So this fearfulness that I had, that I thought was a handicap when I was younger, allows me to make really smart decisions in very dangerous situations now. If I didn't have this fear, I'd probably be dead, honestly. Like, I found myself in some very sketchy situations, and I've had to make very intelligent decisions. And with that, here we are. And people think I do this reckless stuff. If you're on a black diamond trail and you've never put on skis before, that's reckless. But if you've been skiing your whole life, then it's not so bad. And that's what I consider with myself. I'm not saying I'm not putting myself in danger, but I've learned how to scuba dive, skydive, free dive, like I do jujitsu and Muay Thai, and I break dance for 10 years, and I rock climb. Like, I have my spectrum and that's just my physical ability. There's also just the street sense of traveling the world. At a certain point, you start to realize, okay, if you have this breadth, this spectrum of knowledge about how you and the world work, even my biology degree in university, knowing why the tides work, the moon pulls the water, how do mountains form? It seems all trivial, but when you look out in the landscape and you know why that bug is red and why that leaf grows this way, then you just understand how to operate better and more intelligently, right? So for myself, that fearfulness that, again, I thought was a curse, dude, it's been the best thing that's allowed me to be able to get to this point now.
So in terms of those extreme adventures, I would say if you were fearful growing up, those sorts of adventures that you do now probably weren't at the top of your bucket list, were they?
No, not at all. The only thing I did as a kid that is vaguely similar to what I do now is I was outdoorsy, and I was always trying to show people what they didn't understand. So for example, what I mean is I thought spiders, snakes, salamanders were the coolest thing, and I would grab them and I'd show my friends, my mom, my sister, whoever, Be like, look how cool this thing is. And after a while, my family started to love them too. My friends would freak out normally. Oh, it's poisonous, it's venomous, whatever. And I think I love doing that because I realize that most of the world is misunderstood. And that we pick up all this information, that snakes are slimy, right? The snakes are poisonous. It's not even real, it's venomous, right? We hear all these different things about how the world works. And who taught us this? Like sharks, like Jaws, right? Yeah. People are afraid to go swimming in the ocean because of sharks. Meanwhile, I went scuba diving and we pray we see sharks. We want to see sharks. They're amazing creatures, right? Mm-hmm. You learn that maybe sharks kill 10 people a year and we kill 100 million sharks a year. You start to hear all this shit, and then your mind decide you have new data points, right? And from there, you realize that most of the world's misunderstood, and that's what gets me fired up about this now is that people don't understand the world they live in now less than ever, right? It's a big problem, and so my gift, I think, in this world is to help people understand their place in the world, and that it's not this big dangerous globe filled with quicksand and people trying to kidnap you. Know what I mean? Like it's not like that.
Okay, so let's give a few examples of some titles of videos here.
it's not gonna fight for my cause, I don't think.
No. Raiding a baboon camp with Hadza hunter-gatherers in Tanzania. Mm-hmm. Turning a truck into weapons with the Mayans. Lost in Congo and trading a crocodile for a bed.
Yep.
Of all the things in the world that you could do, of all the places you could go, of all the people you could film videos with, why are there specific characteristics of yourself or your desires or what you're interested in the world that leads you to these parts of the world and these types of adventures? Or did you somehow stumble upon these kinds of things and it got you hooked? What's the story behind that?
Yeah, dude, I just have always had an aversion to what everyone else is doing. And so for a while, I mean, you're obviously a YouTuber as well, I tried to just make videos that I thought people would like, and I got burnt out so fast, right? And that was the top 10 beaches of Mexico, the top 5 tacos or whatever. And then I realized if I really wanted to do this, people weren't watching the videos. So I was like, if I'm gonna spend all this time and money making videos that people aren't watching, I might as well make ones that I like making that people don't watch, right? And then lo and behold, you hear this story 1,000 times, that's when people start watching, right? Mm-hmm. The second you decide to be yourself, right? Mm-hmm. But it's not so easy in the beginning. Mm-hmm. So basically, through all these travel experiences, me trying to show people what they think they know about the world is wrong, or their fears are unfounded, that knowledge is the antidote to fear, that allowed me to create a very interesting travel style, which was finding places, things, foods, cultures, people who are misunderstood, and painting the full story. One of my favorite things, bro, about YouTube is that I get to show people things like drinking hot cow blood straight from the cow.
I saw that.
Would you try it?
Yeah.
I hope you say yeah, because if it was just me drinking cow blood, down the road here, it's weird. Yeah. But then going and meeting the Maasai hunters who live on the cattle camp, who the cows are so much more than just members of the family, right? It's like their bank account, it's their wealth. They trade it for a wife. They make huts out of the poop. Literally, it's everything for them. The milk they drink, they get the iron from drinking the blood, and then you meet these people, and they're like, listen, this is great. We don't kill the cow. It doesn't really get hurt. We drink the blood. It's just like a rare steak. Yeah. So have some, and then. If I want to hang with the boys, and I always think it's like, if you came over to my family's Christmas dinner,
yeah, my mom operating the way that you operate.
Yeah, like my mom is turkey, and you're like, I don't actually, no, thank you. And you bring your own granola bars, and you eat the granola bar with a fork and knife while we're all eating turkey dinner. It's like, well then, why did you come all the way here then if you're not?
Yeah.
I treat it the same way.
For sure.
Because for them, it's just as weird. They drink that every single day, right? So who am I to come there and be like, oh, actually, I'm going to eat my Cliff Bar. Oh, why me?
Well, we always find ways to judge others without truly ever experiencing those things ourselves.
Yeah.
So I could sit at home and be like, dude, Mike's drinking cow blood. I would never do that. But then what's the point? You're not actually learning about those people, and what they do might be right or might be good or it might work for them. Just because it doesn't work for you, or you don't think it's right, doesn't mean it doesn't work for others.
And I get diarrhea a lot. So let me be the guinea pig. I've eaten some foul shit. But let me be the guinea pig. And let me just, the idea is not to have you go crave to go eat
For sure.
cow blood. It's more, let's meet the people, let's hear their side of the story, and then let's try it, right? And then even just someone being like, oh, actually, I get it. Don't need to try it, but I understand it. That's the whole goal of it, right? And so again, it could be food. Food's a really good one because we're so privileged here. Man, like I remember growing up that I used to complain about the texture of foods. I didn't like the texture of food. Like water chestnuts, don't like the texture. Then you go out to a tribe that eats the same food 3 times a day. You eat what's there. You don't have the privilege of being, today I don't feel like eating beef. You know what I mean? It's like you eat the same thing 3 times a day. Or you don't eat. And so this whole, I don't like the taste and texture thing is such a privileged bullshit that it's a symptom of having just so much excess of comfort and everything we want that we can choose which textures we like to eat, you know?
But is there a way to, because I mean, you've traveled so much, I've traveled a lot, I understand that completely. From someone who doesn't travel as much or maybe doesn't put themselves in those situations, is there a way to change your attitude or reframe how you see things if you're not traveling?
Yeah, well, I don't blame people because you live a comfortable life here and it's great, right?
Well, you only know what you know to a certain extent, right? So if you're comfortable complaining about textures, it's maybe because you haven't experienced certain things like you have. So it's hard for you to actually visualize the other side. If you've experienced what you experienced, you come home and you go, man, why am I complaining about the texture?
Exactly. And I feel that human beings are incapable of not having problems. We will always create problems. Doesn't matter if you have $1 million or 0, you will always find problems with your life to obsess about and torture yourself over. And they can be problems of different severity, but at the end of the day, if you're comfortable eating whatever, you know, and you're comfortable sleeping whatever in your parents' basement or on the carpet, then you can adjust your response to hardship. But you'll always have hardship, right? Human beings are designed to suffer, man. It's maybe a controversial opinion, but here we are in an age where we have literally everything and we're suffering more than ever. What the hell's up with that, right? And you visit these tribes who have nothing, and yeah, they suffer, but at least they seem to be a bit more happy about it, right? They have goals and a mission. Even if the mission is waking up in the morning and hunting a baboon, like human soul needs a puzzle to solve. And if you don't give it puzzles, it'll create them in your head and you'll yell at people on social media or invent bullshit, right?
So why do you think countries that might have less or people who have less may be happier than people who have more?
I think it's because when you have so much, you get to just sit here, put your feet up, watch Netflix, and there's no puzzle to solve. Like think about, like, human beings have been around for 3 million years. How long have we been fighting to survive, right? Like human beings, think about what we've been able to do. We can live in every environment on the planet, right? In the Arctic, the Antarctic, floating on platforms like the Bajau sea gypsies in Indonesia, the tropics. What our special power is just going to a place, suffering, adapting, surviving, populating. Right. We've always done that. And then when we did that, we also fought each other, right? With swords and spears. Men of our age would go out and literally kill each other over some land grab. Yeah. And that's what you did, right? Until now, when we just fucking sit around and click, right? Yeah. No wonder our brains go crazy. No wonder we have so much anxiety, because we're a tool, man. We're a tool of mass adaptation, right? That's what we are. And we're not using it at all. So no wonder we're torturing ourselves. So these countries that going back to your question, they don't have very much. They have more than us in the sense of a purpose and a mission day to day, right? And we've also rejected religion. I'm not a particularly religious guy, but it gives you a very simple set of standards to follow. Principles and a purpose, right? And a benefit reward system. We throw that away, and what do we replace it with, right? Like wokeism or whatever. We need some sort of belief system to band ourselves together to fight for, right? And without religion, again, we just we find something else. We go us versus them. We yell about whose gender is what, and man, it's interesting. I think in those places where there is every day has a bit of struggle to find food, right? Yeah. To get water, to get shelter. It's just that's what we're meant to do, right? The mind's happy.
So it's the fact that we don't have struggles. In times when we don't have struggles, that we maybe make up the most problems for ourselves.
We always have to struggle, I think. And it's just you get to choose what you do, right? You go to the gym, you crush it at the gym. You don't come home and struggle more. Generally, you just like chill, right? Because you put the struggle in, right? You go do an ice plunge or a sauna or something, right? You go fight for a bit, like whatever you choose, martial arts. You come back and, at least for me, and it seems with most men, you just chill a bit, right? Because you've found some struggle, right?
Is that good or bad?
What is struggle?
No, the chill after.
I think being able to use your body to fight for something is why we're designed, man. Yeah. So I think the chill after, once you've put in the time, then you allow yourself to chill, right?
It sounds like you're frustrated, either frustrated or passionate. I'm not sure if if there's a Venn diagram and they fit together and you're in the middle there. What is maybe your biggest problem that you see with the world? And I would say the world is big, people are different, places are different. So maybe the world you grew up in.
Passionate or frustrated? I don't know, man. I wouldn't say I'm not frustrated. I just wish more people would challenge themselves, be more open-minded, right? Realize that the world's a big, interesting place, and that if you don't use your body or your mind, then it's going to use you. That's what I feel. And we just torture ourselves so much unnecessarily because we don't actually put our mind and body to use. It took me, you're not taught that. I think we're taught to be more comfortable, right? And especially in this world here where everything's becoming easier, like take the escalator, don't take the stairs. Why would you do that? And, eat this food. And I guess the reason why I became so passionate / frustrated was that I just keep on seeing so many amazing examples of how comfort just destroys our lives. For example, spending a lot of time in rural Africa, and spending a lot of time with local tribes who go out, hunt their food, chew bones and forage. One thing that a lot of YouTube comments said was like, wow, their teeth are so amazing. Like all very straight, all very white. And I guess I didn't really realize that until I got a lot of YouTube comments. And so I started to research like, why is it sugar and all this kind of stuff. And it's amazing what I learned that so it's called malocclusion, when your teeth just drift around aimlessly. And you have to wear braces and headgear. And literally it's because we stopped using our teeth, in the sense that now everything is softened bread and baby food that's all mashed and meat with no bone. And so you grow up and you don't actually put your teeth to work, and they just drift without purpose, kind of like a person without actual, a thing to do. And so we have to wear all these braces and shit because we're not actually still chewing meat and peeling things with our teeth. And another example of how the human body needs to have some challenge. And if you make it so easy, then you just drift around without purpose, right? And so again, over and over and over again, all of these different examples around the world of how the soul needs some challenge, right?
What are some things you've brought back from those adventures that we were just talking about that you put to work, you apply?
I've learned to trust my body more, in the sense that I think when we're always using like hand sanitizers, sunscreens, all these different toothpaste, deodorants, all these different things, our body starts to use them as a crutch. When we've been on this planet for so long, right? I'm not saying don't wear sunscreen, but I'm saying maybe not rely on it every minute of the day. You know what I mean? If you're always using these products, your body can't do its thing, and it's really good at doing its thing. It needs a bit of help sometimes, especially if you've been, out of it for a long time. Yeah. But it's a miraculous thing, man, the human body. As well as things like breath are really fascinating, because a lot of cultures use breath in different ways to calm themselves, to chant, to drum up certain even like spiritual states. Breath work is something that I still do a lot, and even some techniques I've learned I use daily, even just to relax or go to sleep. And on top of that, things that the whole world does. Everyone sings and dances. And I've realized, I think dance especially is so fundamentally human because it's a way of expressing yourself without having to use language. It is a language. And you can show your values and what you stand for through dance. And this came up on a podcast I did recently where they were talking about, this guy named Marky Ganong was talking about how Italians always speak with their hands because they were the center of the world for the longest time. And so a lot of cultures came up from North Africa, from the East, from the West, and they all learned to speak more like this so you can actually express yourself when language wasn't the main form. And I find myself, I mean, you've probably seen me expressing a lot with my hands because I find myself always dealing with different cultures too, where the language isn't so good, so I am always the same. But dance is exactly the same thing, right? And that's something that's so funny we've all become very disconnected with, but we all love to dance, right? If you don't like to dance, it's because you never really learned how and there's some judgmental things going on. But yeah, but song and dance are so fundamentally human. And I mean, everyone always listens to music. Like, who doesn't like music, right? It's because how stories were captured, right? For the longest time, music and song and reciting poems was how it was the MP3 or the data of our times. That's how things were saved and passed on, right? The stories, the lessons, the values. Yeah. And so in our brain, we're just locked into hearing these stories and sonnets and things.
Tell me about that deodorant.
I still do
I don't
wear
smell
deodorant.
anything from here, so far so good. Whatever you're
Just
doing.
less often. Just less often.
Less often.
I think if you eat less bullshit, you smell less. That's what I've learned too.
You keep them clean shaven though?
No, man, I got little swamps in there. Do you shave your armpits?
Every now and then, yeah.
Really? I was
Yeah,
thinking
I'm
like
Middle
bristly.
Eastern, man. I don't know. I have so much hair. Like,
I hung out with the Himba tribe, okay? Himba tribe is in Namibia, so we're talking like southern Africa on the west coast, like one country up from South Africa. There's a big desert there, not much water. These women, they think ankles are sexy. They don't think boobs are sexy. So boobs are out to play, ankles are wrapped up. Because there's
men think that the women's ankles are sexy.
Everyone thinks ankles are sexy. These guys right here. Look at that.
Not judging here. I'm okay.
Women's ankles.
I mean, that's fine for the foreigners when they go. All right. Yeah, sure.
Exactly. Yeah. And then they do like a welcome dance where they're jumping around. It's like, oh God, okay.
All right. Cool. Yeah.
Anyway, there's not much water there, and they don't bathe. They don't bathe with water. So they bathe with smoke. So we have these women who live in the desert. They've never bathed with water their entire life. They only take a little smoke, incense. They put it up their skirt, hold it there, under the armpits. Water never touches their body. And they don't smell that bad. They definitely smell a little bit, but not that bad. For never showering in your life.
If we put them on the subway, like, people would disperse, or they'd just be like,
it's a different smell, but it's not as smelly as you'd think for never showering. And they eat goat and corn porridge and maybe cow a little bit. That's it. Nothing else.
Yeah, I know the way that you eat really dictates how you smell, how you taste, and everything. It's interesting. I never applied it to deodorant though.
No.
So what's your deodorant routine?
No, listen, I do wear deodorant sometimes.
Let's not throw you in the dumps here. Let's clear the air here.
We'll have to ask my girlfriend. I'll ask her later if I smell it.
Yeah, we'll figure that one out. Okay, in terms of travel, tell me about a travel experience that you had, whether it be at the beginning of your journey or more recently, that changed the way that you see the world.
I can tell you a story that actually is not even really a video for the story. It was my first time in China, and I had heard that there was parts of the Great Wall called the Wild Wall. And the Wild Wall was were parts that were unrestored. So I don't remember how many kilometers long the Great Wall is. It's longer than Canada. Canada's like 9,000 kilometers. Jamie, pull that up.
Can you check?
Something like that.
How long is Canada?
Anyway, the Great Wall, or how long is the Great Wall? I'm pretty sure it's longer than Canada, kilometer-wise, which is crazy. And so there's a few different...
21,196 Great Wall of China.
Dude, it's a long one.
And Canada? is 7,000 kilometers, 4,700 miles.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay,
Okay,
a lot
so 3
longer.
times as long.
Yeah. So if you're going to go see the Great Wall of China, you go to like one of, I don't know, probably 15 points, but really only 3 are famous. So, but the rest is the Wild Wall, right? And I wanted to go visit the Wild Wall. And when I was with my local guide there, he's like, yeah, listen, we can go to the Wild Wall. There's a little like bed and breakfast local place that has they can take you up for a hike if you want to go there. And I was like, perfect. So we go to the middle of nowhere, mainland China, and we find this little bed and breakfast. And the guy's there, and he speaks like broken English. And he's like, oh, you want to go up to the Great Wall? And I'm like, I would love to go up to the Great Wall. The Wild Wall. Yeah, the Wild Wall. You know, like bricks falling out, old guard towers still there. And he's like, oh, do you want to sleep there? And I said, you can like sleep there? He goes, if you want to, you know. And so I was like, oh, yeah. And he had this old pickup truck, and he's okay, it's illegal, so we'll go up at night. So you'll stay here, you know, we'll just chill, have some tea, and then when the sun sets, we'll take the pickup truck up, I'll drop you off, you and your guide can go, and you can sleep in one of the old guard towers, right? And so I was stoked about this. Sun sets, we're having some tea, we throw some sleeping bags and a tent that they had into the pickup truck, we bounce up this road. I'm in the back seat, my guide and the B&B owner are there, and they're chit-chatting, and I see my guide like get really uncomfortable. And they're speaking in Mandarin, so I'm like, what's going on? And he goes, he says that, you know, here that when they were building the Great Wall, that the people who died building the Great Wall, they would put the bodies in the wall to use as building material. And I'm like, oh, that's creepy. And so we're going up, and I can see like more chit-chatter. And my guide still looks uncomfortable. We're getting close. And I'm like, what's going on? And he's like, he's saying that there's lots of ghosts here. And I was like, cool. Like, I don't believe in ghosts. So if you don't believe in ghosts, you're pretty much invincible from ghosts. And so he drops us off, he leaves, and it's me and my guide is fucking terrified. And so we go up, the full moon comes up, we're walking along the old broken wall, and you can see it in the full moon snaking across the landscape. There's this giant guard tower with like the slits where they would have shot arrows out of. We crawl up this crumbling staircase on the second floor of the guard tower. There was enough spot for the tent, so we set up the tent. My guide is super uncomfortable. And then we're there, I'm taking some shots. I've got my little camera doing like long exposure photography. And then there was something rustles in the bushes. And my guy's like, okay, I'm going to leave. I'll see you in the morning. And I was like, man, you can't just leave me here. And he's like, no, it's okay. It'll be okay. And he ran down the pass to the B&B. So he left me in the middle of mainland China with maybe a ghost in the bushes. And I had to make a choice. Do I stay and succumb to this, like, you know, bullshit of ghosts and haunting and stuff? Or do I man up, stay, and have a very interesting night? Probably not sleep very much, but have an awesome night to myself. And I stayed. And didn't sleep barely at all, but sat on the top, full moon went by, you know, saw the sunrise the next morning over the Wild Wall. And I realized then that you don't have to do what's in the brochure. So many people go to China, right? They go see the Great Wall. They go to one of the manicured, perfected pieces. You pay your $15 entrance fee. You walk up with 1,000 other people. You take your shot, and you leave. Is that travel, really? To go all the way there just to stand in line, pay money to see something? Or is travel having it to yourself? Like, isn't that what you always want to do? Have it to yourself? Or at least be with local people? And then from there, I realized that the entire world's like that. You can choose your own adventures, and you don't have to choose what's in the pamphlet. Even if there's, you know, Great Wall experience, talk to your guide. Is there anywhere else we can go? You know, okay, waterfall, great. Hey, where do you take your family on the weekend if you wanted to get away from the tourists, right? Whether it be a mosque, a church, a waterfall, a hike. Asking those simple questions, man, you can have incredible experiences, and you'll be the only one there.
I mean, I love that. That's an amazing story, an amazing lesson. I believe in the exact same thing. If someone is listening to this and wondering, well, how could I do that? What's the maybe first step that you take? Suppose I'm saying, I want to go to China. but I want to have an experience like you, because the experience that you had, in theory, a lot of things had to happen once you met up with everyone for it to go that way, right? So experiences happen from the conversations you have and the little decisions, small actions that create other decisions and whatnot. How can someone get started?
I've been doing this since I was like 23. Your age, basically, is when I started. So, like professionally now for 10 years. So basically, it's like Michael Jordan slamming dunks, and you asking how you could do that, right? Because I've been doing it for so long. For me, it's you show up, you talk to somebody, he takes you there. But I've realized it's not that simple, especially because you don't know, if you're going to a country where you don't speak the language, right? You don't know anybody. That's scary shit. And also the biggest handicap is you're in a small town maybe, or a big town, but the people who are out there solo backpacking the world aren't here. They're out there. Everyone here isn't doing that. So why would they say go do that? The people doing it will tell you to go, but they're not going to be here. Therefore, all of the people around you aren't going to encourage you. They're going to discourage you because they all they see is the news, man. Watch the news. The world's a horrible, dangerous place. You'll get kidnapped and robbed, and everything's blowing up, and things are on fire, right? So you have to speak to people like myself, or even someone like you. It could be a DM. Maybe we'll message back. Maybe we won't. People get busy, but there's lots of travelers out there who can give you lots of advice. And don't think you can't use Airbnb and Uber and all of these apps you're very familiar with in most other countries in the world, right? And also, we think that people are, again, that these countries are unfriendly. I like to think of it, if you were in rural Canada, right, and you see some Japanese guy or like Bangladeshi guy who obviously is very out of place, holding a map, lost in rural Canada, are you going to go steal his shit? Or are you going to be like, how did you get here? Yeah. Let me help you. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's exactly how it works everywhere else in the world, right? You see some guy who's a local person, sees someone who's obviously not from there. People are fundamentally kind. People are not evil. They're not bad. A few are, but I'm telling you, mostly you, after almost 100 countries, a lot of them being DR Congo, right? Mauritania, Pakistan, Turkmenistan. These unfriendly countries are the friendliest countries, right? That's how the world works. And we've have it beaten into our brains. Just like from the beginning, I told you that my life's mission has been destroying disinformation and misinformation. We are malinformed, right? My mission is to help people understand the world is not what we think it is. It is so much kinder and more beautiful and more interesting. So for me, it seems very simple because I know that the risk is not really there, right? But for people who haven't experienced that before, it's difficult. The best hack I give people now for travel is find a place you want to go and look at any hobby you have or any hobby you'd like to try. Let's say it's salsa dancing, right? Either if you're a salsa dancer or want to try, you can go to any country in the world, man. You can easily do that in Latin America. But even I was in Taiwan and got invited to a salsa club in Taipei, Taiwan. Probably the farthest place you can actually get from the heart of salsa. You show up, you're a newbie or you're experienced, and people are just happy to have you there, right? And also it allows you to kind of short circuit the whole having to meet people thing because you have a skill you're learning or want to learn or are already good at, and you get to hang with people who are very similarly minded, right? And they'll often invite you out, there's events and that. So you can pick up a skill or practice a skill. I've been doing this with jiu-jitsu forever now, like 6 years. Same thing with Muay Thai, same thing with whatever. You show up, and especially in martial arts, you're kind of like fresh meat, It's like, who's the new kid? Not in like a let's kill him sort of way. Well, a little bit like that, but in a friendly way, right?
Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, exactly. Let's see what you can do. Yeah. And I've made very fast friends I've rolled like the jiu-jitsu in probably 25 countries. And it's amazing how fast you become friends with someone when you're trying to kill each other. You know what I mean?
For sure.
And so that's the easiest hack these days. And again, don't think that just because you're foreign that it's gonna impact you. Think about, again, someone from a different country who speaks broken English meeting you at a bar or at your local practice club. Would you treat him like a dick? Would you steal his shit? No, you'd be like, hey bro, like all the way here, like how did you get, like Tim, let's hear your story, right? Yeah. Exactly the same.
And so So because you said you've done it for so many years, sometimes when you're so pro, it's hard to remember when you weren't a pro, like you were just saying. I'll ask a simpler question. A lot of people ask me this, you know, when I get to a place, should I have my itinerary set or should I just book the ticket, you know, maybe have my return, maybe not have my return, and just figure it out. I like what you said. So you go to a place, but you go to a place with a certain goal in mind. You have a hobby, you have an interest. You're going to discover a part of the world based on that hobby. And that automatically gives you something in common with the people there, lets you make friends a bit more easy. Should we be confined by itineraries, or should we kind of leave it up to chance?
Depends what you're trying to do. If you are solo traveling, which I recommend everyone does, then you should lock in a hostel for a week or something in a destination, land, and just roll with the punches. Go on the hostel pub crawl, meet someone in the lobby. I mean, I remember my first time going to a hostel. I was pretty introverted, and my forte wasn't meeting people. But then some dude came up and said, "Hey, where are you from? Do you want to go grab some food?" And it's like, yeah. You know what I mean? If you're there, it'll happen. Yeah. And then from there, see where it goes. Book off a couple weeks or whatever, and then just see where it goes. Because the best experiences aren't the ones you're going to be able to book the tour with, right? Sure, there's some things you should probably book if you really want to do it that are busy. Like some things are cool, like going to Cappadocia in Turkey. Yeah, it's famous with Instagram, with the balloons, but it's a really cool place. There's much cooler experiences than what you see online. You just have to poke around a little bit, right? Yeah. If you're taking your girlfriend on a trip, maybe you should have some plans along the way. But generally, I think if you're mid 30s or 40s, then maybe have a bit more structure. But if you're willing to just spend time in the trenches, like just don't make a plan.
What about trust? So, I mean, I'd love to know, when you go on your trips, is it mainly you? Are you with the team, or is it mainly you with fixers and people from the ground or on the ground?
There's two versions of me though. There's like making YouTube content, and there's me doing a trip.
Okay,
so which one do you mean?
You making your YouTube videos.
Then yeah, there's a team, and there is a schedule because it's a business. So, but I do always leave time open. So, for example, the two recent trips in the past year. One was to Congo, where I landed in Kinshasa, and there was 1 week of everything's booked, right? So we're filming the voodoo wrestling on one day, where there's people WWE style casting magical spells at each other. Next day is going with these guys called sapeurs, Société des Ambianceurs, something.
Yeah.
These guys who
Just
dress
like
up
millionaires.
in fancy clothes and walk through the streets. And there was a third one, which was, I forget right now. And then it was a week of just going to the jungle and seeing what happens. And the most recent in Angola was the same. There was a week of filming with some tribes, and then a week of just, let's see what happens. Because if you ask enough questions, you can find the cool things that no one's done before. But again, how do you find off the beaten path? Because you can't Google off the beaten path Indonesia and find off the beaten path, because someone made a blog post about it. It's not really it. So you go there, you ask questions, and you can always find cool adventures.
But so when you're in that situation in China, where you were with the guide and then you were with the two people who were driving you, that's just you and the guide, right? Just two people, he left you, now you're alone.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
Where does that trust come from? Like, did you know him before the guide, or was it someone you had spoken to a few times? Like, you didn't know him personally for a while, I'm guessing.
I found a contact. I think I just messaged out to friends, family, and whatever fans I had at the time. Does anyone have a contact for like a solo guide, like a personal guide in China? That's all it was.
And more often than not, those people are trustworthy?
I've had ones that are better than others. But if you have like an Instagram page and you have photos of taking other people, or I get your name from a friend and you took my friend somewhere, or a friend of a friend somewhere, then the only bad things I've had happen to me have been opportunistic hyena type shit, where like scavenger, where pickpocketing, no one's actively trying to hurt you, right? I've had my rental cars broken and things stolen 2 or 3 times, right? Like I've had my suitcase stolen once from the airport. Not actually, I haven't been mugged, no one's ever tried to cause me harm. There's always going to be people out there looking for to be sneaky and steal shit, right? No, here in Montreal or in Angola. But no one's ever tried to actively cause me harm in all of these crazy countries, right?
So we should have more trust in people.
I have had no reason not to trust people. And yeah, I've met a few untrustworthy people, but they're not giving private tours, right? They're selling some shill in the back alley or something, right? And if you have any kind of street sense, you'll know that, right? But generally, there's better ways to get things from people than setting up a fake travel business, you know what I mean? So, yeah.
Okay, so I have a quote from you. Fear is a liar and a thief.
Yeah.
Can you explain this?
Fear is a liar and a thief, and it'll steal your future and it'll bully you endlessly if you let it. And what I mean by that is the fear in your life affects all of your decisions. And people might not think that they have lots of fear because there's two kinds of fear in my eyes. There's quiet fears and there's loud fears. So a loud fear is a fear of heights. So we go out in the balcony and it's like, oh shit, I could fall. It takes over your senses, right? Fear of the ocean, you don't go swimming. Fear of public speaking is you get close to the scenario and you just feel the waves, the turmoil building up, like revving of an engine. Mm-hmm. There's quiet fears too, which is perfectionism, right? What is perfectionism, right? Mm-hmm. It's the fear of being judged, right? And often perfectionism stops you from making any art at all because you're afraid to put out there, right? Maybe it won't be as good, maybe people will judge you. Jealousy, anger, these are all still fears just manifesting themselves in more adult ways. So we don't lift the sheep from the bed and see a monster there anymore. That's what we used to be afraid of. Mm-hmm. Fear gets crafty. It manifests itself in adult ways, like all of those things. Mm-hmm. And if you let it boss you around, it'll steal your future. But I say a bully in the sense like a schoolyard bully, because if you stand up to it and say, no, not today, when fear steps up in your face and you hit back, it loses its power, right? Just like a schoolyard bully, if you allow it to push you around, it'll only get stronger. It knows it has power. But the second you stand up for yourself in the face of it, then things start to get a little bit spicy, right? But that's a very scary feeling in both scenarios, whether it's a physical person who can hurt you or a fear which you think can hurt you, but often it's just a bunch of bullshit you put in your head, you know?
So at the beginning of the interview, you touched on a little bit about, you said you were arguably more fearful than most people.
Right, yeah, I would say so.
What is your relationship with fear at this point? Because of what you just spoke about. So you're managing it, and what you do to the outside person, if they haven't spoken to you or they didn't listen to what you just said, they would think this guy's fearless. Like, he's fucking crazy, you know? Like, he can do anything. So I'm curious to know, if you are fearful, yet you do things that most people would believe are scary, how do you kind of manage those things? What do you tell yourself to be able to do them, to get past those initial roadblocks of, nah, I don't want to do that?
Yeah, for sure. I've got like 3 simple hacks. Number 1 is when you feel fear for something, again, it could be doing a presentation, starting a YouTube video, whatever it is. The immediate reaction is to feel fear of that feeling, especially if it's performative, right? Like going to speak in front of a group. If you're going to be called, you feel fear, then you're like, oh my God, I'm so scared right now. And you're just dumping more gasoline on the fire, right? Because you're afraid of being afraid. If you can change that moment where when you think, bing, you feel the fear and you say, yes. Oh man. Messes things up in your head. Yeah. Because from there, the second point is, fear and excitement are basically the same biochemically. It's just the framing of the result. What I mean is fear is associated with, you get like a rapid pulse and you get excited and flustered or whatever. That's associated with a negative result. I'm going to fail. Something's going to happen. But excitement it's physiologically the same, but it's a positive result. Oh, it's a roller coaster. It's excitement. And when you start changing your relationship, saying, yes, I'm so excited, over, oh my God, I'm so scared, your brain just doesn't know what to do with that. It's like, no, but it's confused. And then it starts to short circuit the entire fear response, right? You put those together and you start using that language in your head when you do feel that feeling. And then you realize that fear is the wall of fire that anybody must pass through, anybody and everybody, must pass through to become their best selves. Anybody who is successful, anyone who's done anything great, remarkable, has passed through that burning wall of fire, and it hurts, but on the other side, it doesn't continue into a valley of flames. There's just that one little wall, right? There'll probably be several walls along the way, but you pass through, and man, it's great on the other side.
For sure.
And so if you want
liberating.
it's for sure, right? And you have to realize that, are you going to be the kind of person who turns tail, turns around when those challenges come up? Or are you going to be the kind of person that realizes, okay, this is a challenge from life, the universe, God, pick it. And am I going to stand up to this challenge and go through it? Or am I going to turn around? I have a compass tattooed on my chest. I got it a few months ago because I've learned that fear is a compass. And if you walk towards that bearing and go through those fires, man, life gives you everything. People say I have a dream life, right? I get to travel the world, do all of the most amazing things, see the most amazing places, not even for free, to get paid to do that, right? And it's only because I've treated fear like a compass. People think I'm fearless. Dude, I am the complete opposite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've just learned through experience that it is the guiding point in your life. You have to walk towards it, not away.
So whatever you're most scared of is what you, in theory, should be walking towards.
So many fantastic quotes about that. One of my favorites is by Joseph Campbell. That's the cave you fear to enter hides the treasure that you seek. But there's a thousand. And so many people have realized this because so many people have discovered, oh my God, everything I've always wanted was on the other side of that fear. However, very few people just wake up in the morning and want to make themselves so viscerally uncomfortable. It takes a breakup. It takes a car crash. It takes, your nose hitting the asphalt. In a point of desperation, humans do a really good job, some of us, being opportunistic and finding the lesson or the value in the suffering. Others just complain, right? If I was given one thing, one talent, it wasn't to speak on camera. It wasn't to travel. It was that I was able, for some reason, to find the path through the struggle. When life shit on my face, I was able to be like, this really sucks, but what's next? How can I use this? If I can't do this now because of whatever reason, what does it allow me to do? And that attitude of finding an opportunity when others find a problem or a wall, that is a magical human strategy right there.
And does it get easier over time because from what you're talking about, you're almost framing fear as a muscle. The decision to attack a fear versus run away from it is a decision, right? Just like doing something that's difficult. It's a muscle. The more that you do it,
So courage is a muscle.
in theory, the easier it becomes.
It's exactly like that.
Is that true? Is it easier for you to frame it in a more positive, optimistic way now?
For sure it is, because you have more data points, right? Like if you grow up and every time you got put in front of a group, for example, or every time you went to the ocean, it was just more terrifying because you have some shit that happened, then that's more points in okay, this is bad. The more points you give yourself of, actually, you know what, I went in the ocean, or asked that girl out, then it's just, and I didn't die, I didn't piss my pants and black out or whatever it was, right? It's just more proof to yourself that it's not as horrible as you thought it once was. And after a while, then there's more positive than negative, and then it's much easier. But just like doing pull-ups, right? Or doing curls at the gym, if you can do it and it's great, but if you don't do it for a year or two, the muscle atrophies, right? Courage is the same. You have to keep using it. It's a muscle. And after a while of brainwashing yourself, knowing that fear and excitement are very similar, knowing that it is the rite of passage that everyone successful and most likely happy has gone through, who's accomplished anything, you see them as opportunities to prove yourself. It is another challenge. You are Hercules, and it's one of the, what did Hercules have to do? Battle something? He had to
Kill everyone, no?
kill everyone.
He held up the world.
He had no, that was yeah, but what was it? They had things.
Who's
that
the
were
guy who held
called
up the world? It's
Atlas.
not Hercules?
That was Atlas.
Yeah,
Hercules had tests, some kind of tests. The labors of Hercules. Each one is a labor to be able to prove yourself, given to you by the universe.
So you were saying and I agree with this, most people only wake up and realize they're not living the life they want to be living when something traumatic happens. Break up, get fired, someone dies, something happens. Let's say that's not the case. You're just continuously unhappy, or maybe something happened, didn't matter, you're still on the same course. You're not happy with your life and you would like to improve it. Can you, in a sense, start flipping the switch while staying in the same environment, in the same location, with the same people? Or does it take a certain switch to really make those changes happen and actually let them happen for a continuous period of time?
Yeah. Awesome question. Humans are creatures of routine. We like things easy, right? That's why all of this is so difficult. It's because we like things that are easy and comfortable, right? And we're so good at just conserving energy and building this whole routine. We go on autopilot. We don't even think about it, right? We walk in our house. We do all these things. And that's just, it's comfortable because we're always trying to conserve calories, right? Because again, when survival was a struggle, calories are hard to come by. And so we're always trying to conserve that. And so the human mind finds itself in these ruts really, really easy. And that's why I preach travel so much. It's because when you remove yourself from a space and go somewhere else completely, you can be a whole different person, a hell of a lot easier, especially if you spend 20 years living with your parents or been living with a spouse for a long time, and maybe there's a breakup, or maybe just when people are with people or when people are in a space, they just melt into that. And all the dents and grooves are part of them too. You pick up, you move, you have to think of, make an active choice about where you sleep, what you do, where you eat. Then you can reform habits. And maybe that's why I got addicted to it, because I wasn't happy with myself for a lot of my life. And with that, I was able to craft a whole new identity by almost like picking up different pieces around the world. I think we're all born with a lens, man, where your culture, your family, your loved ones give you a view on the world, who you are, where you are, what you believe. And for some people, they can see crystal clear who they are, right? They see their place and they can be happy. They have a wife and kids, everything's great. But for a lot of people, it's just blurry. You don't really actually see your place, right? What I did is simply traveled, broke that lens by traveling, picked up, Day of the Dead beliefs in Mexico. Oh, that's very interesting. Honoring, our ancestors. Going and spending time with the tribe, hunting and appreciating food and eating with your hands and understanding you don't need all this extra comfort stuff, put that in and slowly form a lens and forge a brand new view of the world that now I feel is pretty much crystal clear. It's a few little fragments I need, but basically I was able to see my place in the world through travel. And you can't change your life. It's really hard to change your life if you don't, in my opinion, travel or have some kind of earth-shattering, foundation-breaking trauma where you have to change everything, right? Your whole routine changes because of something terrible.
Yeah.
And then in that, you can build the pieces back again differently, if you choose to, or you can wallow in self-pity forever, right? People do that too. But it's that idea of, shit, well, what's the silver lining? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a magical attitude.
So if I was listening to this, I know 100% what I would wish the next question to be. And you might not know the answer. You can just make it up if you want, or you could just not answer it. But if you had a framework or a strategy or like an itinerary, some sort of actionable description of what you would do. So let's take the situation. Pretend it's me. I'm unhappy with my life. I want to make changes. This is the life I'm living. This is the life I want to be living. How do I turn and get here?
If you're watching this, or you probably have some love for travel. You probably follow other travelers, me, you, other people. Pick 10, pick 20, it doesn't matter. Pick a whole bunch. Have a simple message and send it to them, their email, their Instagram, or both. And just say, hi, I know you're busy, been thinking about traveling by myself. What's one tip? Or even, should I do it? If I get a comment like that, I will always answer it, right? Because I know that's a deciding point. I will bet you won't do it because it's scary, and I'll probably rant at you for 30 seconds about it's not about where you go, or, you know, how do you do it right? It's the decision to make it. But at least then you'll have more data points of people who've done it, you know? Like, should I do it even? Yeah. And everyone will always say yes. In my 12 years of doing this, I've never met anybody who said, no, I wouldn't solo travel again. Everyone's like, oh, it's the best thing I ever did. Yeah. So from there, get yourself more data points of being able to go, you know, at least have more positive association, because don't expect your family or friends to support you. Mm-hmm. And then from there, you have to realize that travel has become broken since the invention of social media, that the travelers who make careers out of it, like myself, are offered silly amounts of money to go to luxury resorts to post about how wonderful things are. And therefore, luxury travel is massively inflated. And all we see is how travel has to be expensive, when really the fundamental building blocks of travel is just a dude with a stick and a little napkin on the back, right? You know what I mean? Yeah. Like hitchhiking style. Yeah. You don't have to go to Bali. You can just hitchhike, right? And you can just take a train or a bus, travel across the country for a day, you know? Like, if you have a couple $100, man, or even no money. People live every single day with no money, right? If you got to sleep in the woods for a night, awesome. You know, I hope you see a bear. Hope it doesn't hurt you too much. But like, the attitude that you have to be able to put yourself out there and understand that to have anything worth anything in this life, there's always going to be risk. Mm-hmm. We think that if we stay home, there's no risk. You're risking a life of being unhappy. And honestly, if you don't move your body too much, you're risking diabetes or obesity or heart attacks, right? Like, there's always risk. Yeah. So again, you can choose your risks. And with that, you can ask people questions. You can learn about the risk, and you can make good decisions. But don't think travel has to be a luxury resort in Cancun or Tulum or, you know, Sydney, Australia. You can just jump on a bus and go across the country. Meet some weird people, have some funny stories, you know, maybe have something that almost happened, a risky moment. Man, but like, without risk, there's no adventure, right? There's no good stories. And how do you become wise and interesting in this world? Especially as a man, you have to take some risks, tell some cool stories. Yeah. And without risk, there are no good stories.
Are you surrounded by a lot of good people in your life? People who you run these ideas by or you confide in? Do you think the environment that you have maybe helps shape that? Like,
you mean when I was younger or now?
All throughout.
When I was younger, I had...
Because I'm wondering, does all of this... I mean, what you're saying now comes from a lot of experience. So if your environment's not as helpful or supportive, you've built it in yourself. You're disciplined. You understand everything. I guess when you were younger, you have to have sort of an environment that helps you, at least friends, family. Yeah. Did you have that support?
When I was younger, I had my parents pushed me to be curious. They put curiosity at the top of the list and encouraged my curiosity above all else. And I think that is one of the most amazing characteristics a human can have, is curiosity. Now I have so many positive data points. I just know that I can show up and, again, make good decisions for the most part, but that things will always unfold in quite a spectacular way. Make a loose plan, but allow serendipity to take the wheel at some point, and those are always the best trips, right?
So when I went to Japan, one of the things I learned about the culture is that the majority of people who work at a specific job, the attitude they have is that they're going to be working in that job for the entirety of their lives. Yeah. So in Japan, why everyone has such a great attitude towards these people is, made in Japan, this, made in Japan, that. We all want Japanese products. We want to be attached to Japanese items. The reason is because they practice a form of mastery. I find here, once someone gets a job, they're always looking for an upgrade. They're always looking for a next step, trying to bounce around. They're not necessarily happy with where they're at. And for you, I looked at your channel. You've been making videos for quite a long time, and you've been continuing to do that, from around my age, or maybe a few years older, to where you're at now. How have you managed to be consistent for so long doing the same thing? Or maybe a different version of that is, how have you kind of made it more fun or worked it around a little bit so that you can continue to do the same thing? Like, why did you just quit and do something else or move on? How'd you not get bored with it?
The beautiful thing about doing anything creative is that you become a fundamental piece of your art and your brand, right? And so from the beginning, picking up a camera all those years ago, it's amazing how everything in hindsight connects together. Like I was a break dancer for 10 years, right? That was one of my first things I loved. And that also helped me get over my initial fear of being in the spotlight, because breakdancing was something confrontational where all eyes are on you, but you didn't have to speak, right? And something I learned very early on then is with breakdancing, if you do some moves and you fall and you're like, oh my God, my knee, like Peter Griffin from Family Guy, people will be like, oh shit, he hurt himself. But if you just go, B-boy stance, you meant to do it, right? And that attitude towards anything performative is a hack. If you look like you meant to do it, then you can do whatever you want. So looking back, that dance style allowed me to travel the world and actually interact with all sorts of different tribes again. With dance, I'm comfortable dancing and learning dance moves and communicating with tribes because a lot of it's very, very physical. And so from there, I also learned how to do like spinning fire, like poi. And I also learned how to free dive and scuba dive. And all of these skills kind of came together and allowed me to focus on different areas of my life, right? In the beginning, I was talking on camera. Then I got more into cinematography and videography, then into photography, then into more recently podcasting and all. So with all of that, it's all in a giant spectrum that all kind of magnify each other, right? So being able to practice my speaking, for example, doing endless horrible takes with a camera in front of me, talking, messing up, but that allowed me to be able to present myself more, right? And build my personal brand. And then also doing podcasting allowed me to be more articulate, you know what I mean? And photography allowed me to be able to take better photos, but also like compose scenes and set up shots for video better as well. So all this kind of came together. And while it's been a very similar job for 12 years, I can focus different places, right? So maybe I'm getting a little bit sick of photography. Then, okay, I'll do more of, podcasting or more yada, yada. But eventually it's all building a personal brand of thing or more self-help now. Like I really enjoy speaking about the fear thing. And I always love it, but I'll change topics a little bit too. Yeah. And so with all of that, different pieces of you can become a very fascinating job opportunity. And because you have such a wide berth on the creative front, you can, again, monetize those, or the filaments come together like some kind of fungal mycelium where everything's actually connected you didn't really know. But by breakdancing and traveling, okay, there's this idea. Or by, scuba diving and skydiving, you can do this idea, right? Everything kind of comes together and gets quite exciting. And what I feel now is the reason why I haven't got burnt out is I just follow the fire in my life. It's not really so much about what I should be doing all the time. It's like what excites me, right? So getting my skydiving license a few months ago, that excited me, right? And I didn't know what content would come from there. But then once I met people, talked, heard ideas, things that were happening, all sorts of different connections started to pop up to make content or, to have other cool experiences. And that's how I think a human should live, is especially if you're a creative and you don't mind roughing it, again, and sleeping on the floor or your mom's basement, whatever. If you're comfortable being uncomfortable, you can do anything. And that's where I think travel comes in again, is knowing that you can eat beans and have, busted up blue jeans and sleep wherever in your car, but have fire in your heart to do something and learn something, oh man, the money will come, right? Because that fire is such a rare thing. It's a shame to just throw it away and ignore it. If you feel excited for something, it could be macaroni pictures, finger painting. Yeah. Do it until the fruit doesn't have any juice in it. Just do it until you get it, right? Yeah. And often maybe you don't want to do that as your life path, but at least from there you'll
get a start. Yeah.
Yeah.
Momentum.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Follow the fire.
Yeah, I always thought that school put an emphasis on telling us to build our lives around our career. Mm-hmm. And one thing I always strive for was building my career around my life. Mm-hmm. So just finding things that you're interested in doing, finding things that you're passionate about doing, and then figuring out how you can make money doing those. Yeah. Seems like you're basically saying the same thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Do you think that you're successful?
I think success comes from happiness. And I think that I'm pretty happy. I mean, I think anybody who goes into the self-help sphere isn't all of the time or hasn't always been, including people who digest the content. Because if you're happy all the time, why do you need
Not
to...
watching it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. So I think that's the eternal struggle that a lot of us have, is that we're trying to get there, but it's a butterfly that with a hole in the net, right? But even just the progress we get from learning more about ourselves and different techniques and morning routines or whatever it is, like these things help us become it. And I think a part of it is just being like, you know what, I have enough. Like the gratitude practice is such a powerful thing, right? It's so easy to always be thinking about the next step, right? You have an accomplishment, you do something, and it's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? And now we get to see all of the steps possible, right? With social media, we see, Elon Musk and like Bezos and or whoever else you idolize. And you just see like how far it could go and where do you want to be in the totem pole. Maybe it's not that far. Maybe it's like Rogan, or maybe it's Anthony Bourdain or something, right? And you just know that you're not that yet, but you'll never be that. So you can be something up there, right? But I think it's something you have to really watch. It's a very powerful fuel, my man. Yeah. This like feeling that you haven't accomplished enough. Very powerful fuel, but it destroys you from the inside out, right?
Yeah. And how much of that do you think that luck plays into it? I've heard a lot of people, and I have my belief, I'd rather hear it from you first before sharing mine, but a lot of people, when they see successful people, will use the word luck.
Yeah.
What do you think of luck? What is luck?
Yeah, this is a quote, not my words, but it's like luck is when hard work meets opportunity, right? So you put in the hours and then opportunities come up. And I mean, if you have the skill set, then you get quite lucky, right? But I have a bit more of a spiritual side to it. I really think that you have to prove yourself to whatever's up there, right? The universe, let's call it. That if you put time in the trenches, right? So you go to the gym, right? You read the books. You're not jacking off and playing video games all the time, right? If you're actually trying to sharpen the axe every single day, really working on yourself, then something up there notices, and then it will give you what you want, right? But you have to prove it, because there's lots of people out there trying hard. But if you make sure you're disciplined, then your hard work will be rewarded, right? Yeah, I really do think that.
100%. And you like to journal?
I love the journal. But journaling, yeah, that was probably the most pivotal thing that changed everything. Was actually, it's funny because we dove into that briefly in the beginning. And there was a thing in there that was exactly one of the very first things I ever did. And I remember I was sitting on a beach, and I had the hotel stock little notepad. And a friend had given me a bootleg Cuban cigar, and I had like a half bottle of rum. And so I sat and I smoked this cigar for the first time ever, like wheezing and coughing and drooling the whole time, drinking this really crappy rum. And I felt stuck. And I wrote down like friends, and I gave myself a 1 out of 10. And I wrote why. And then finances, 1 out of 10. Why? Family, 1 out of 10. And went through all of these different things. And it was the first time I ever reflected on how I felt about these different categories of my life. And then from there, I got so much more clarity about how I felt. I launched myself into 12 years, 15 years of journaling. I don't want to say every day, but pretty much every day. Yeah.
What does it do for you? Because I believe in journaling very strongly, but I know a lot of people, especially men, especially people who may not think they need to grow, they have a hard time understanding the purpose of it. How do you use it? How do you see it? What does it do for you?
Our brains are messy, especially now with so much information, so much stimulus, so much information overload all of the time. Writing allows me to distill all of the noise and sort the crap out. With paper, I can, let's say everything's a fog, right? Just swirling mist. And then writing for me is that making condensation, like water forming, and then it making something solid, right? And then I can see how I truly feel. Whenever I've gone through anything hard in my life, that saved me. It's how I've been able to get out of every rut was ink on paper, not notepad app, ink on paper.
Hey there, I hope that you're enjoying the conversation so far. At Sprought, we're really big on not just listening to advice, but also taking action on it. At the beginning of my own self-growth journey, I was lost, and I was trying to find the answers to questions about who I was and what I wanted from life. Was I good enough to be the person that I wanted to be? Did I have what it takes to be able to craft that life? And how would I even get started in doing that? I turned to journaling as an answer, and after 7 years of having done it consistently, it gave me the tools to finally find fulfillment in many aspects of my life. Now, I took all of those 7 years of experience, knowledge, to go from who I used to be to where I am at now, and I created a 365-day workbook out of it. This 365-day workbook is a fully guided journal intended to bring you on your own year-long journey to outlining, creating, and living your version of your most fulfilling life. We've actually only created a limited batch of these, and if you are serious about making positive big changes to your life, which if you're listening to this podcast, you must be, I highly recommend trying it out. You can get your copy at sprought.com or by clicking the link in the description of this episode. A better life is just one click away.
Do you mind if we go through your journal for today?
Yeah.
Okay, so how do you feel on a scale of 1 to 10? You rated yourself a 7. Can you tell me why 7? 7 is the lazy man's answer. If you don't know what to believe, it's 7. No, because right now I'm going through a massive transition in my life, and spent 2 or 3 weeks back home with family, 2 weeks, and now going to get my first apartment in 5-6 years in Mexico, and ready to rebuild my brand. And with that, I've changed a lot this year. I had a 7-month TV show that we wrapped up earlier this year. Had probably the most powerful year of my life, like again, skydiving lessons, chest tattoo, finding crystal skulls in the Mayan underworld, like all kinds of crazy stuff. Had like an insane ayahuasca trip where I thought I died. So, just an average experience. So, no, I broke myself this year in so many different ways. Beautiful ways, but like difficult ways. And now the chaos is finally, I use chaos like a bad word, but I thrive in chaos, man. But like that's starting to dissipate. And so now I have probably 4 months before we most likely do a third season of the TV show to take everything I've learned and put it down on like in concrete. So new version of the course, solid messages, doing more writing as well. And with that, I feel this surge of being able, I've got to do it. But, I've been chilling. I get to see my girl again. I'm in a new relationship. She's awesome. She's first time meeting my family. We're at the cottage, so I've had this this entrepreneurial spark just ready to explode. But I've been just trying to keep it at bay, you know what I mean? And not feel so, just try to enjoy it. If I can't enjoy myself and relax, what's it all for, right?
That seems like an 8.
Maybe it's an 8 then.
It seems like an 8.
7 turns into 8. Just put a line through it.
Okay, so career, you rated a 7, relationships an 8, self-love 7, mental health 8, health 10, and ambition 9. Can I ask why career and self-love are your lowest 2 ratings?
I think for that same reason, where I know there's so much I, air quotes, should be doing right now. That needs to be done. That's like red line emergency. That's what it feels like. But in reality is, who am I racing? Who am I racing, right? And really the solution, I think, is just being able to just, chill out. Yeah, maybe do some writing, keep the ideas together, but space gives wonderful things to you too, right?
Yeah. So last thing. So I'll have you read out your one piece of life advice for today. And can you explain the meaning behind why you chose that?
My one piece of life advice for today is to be playful. I wrote that because I think in a lot, life we can take too seriously, and conversations we can take too seriously. And playfulness is, in my opinion, the hallmark of mastery. When you're learning something like this competence, and mastery. But basically, if you can be playful with something, whether it be lacrosse or tennis or conversation, then that is the ultimate form of freedom and mastery of something. But it's very easy to take things too seriously and focus on what you should do or should say or should be or all these different things. And I mean, if I could just walk through my life being disciplined and playful, dude, I think that's probably what happiness would be for me.
Super powerful. Where can we find you?
Fearless and far everywhere. Yeah, I also have, so that's on YouTube. I get 2 million subscribers on YouTube. Instagram as well, Fearless and Far. I have a TV show in the States called Uncharted Adventure. Got 2 Emmy nominations for that. So first season got an Emmy nomination for the show, and I have an Emmy nomination as host. But now because of the writer's strike and the actor's strike, we're still waiting. Fingers crossed. And also I have a podcast called Against the Odds, which you can find everywhere you get podcasts.
You don't say your name enough in YouTube videos also.
Mike Cord? I can say more. Yeah.
We need more Mike. I've seen in the comments, this guy. Need some more mics.
All right, I'll name drop myself.
Appreciate it, man.
Thanks, bro.
Thank you.
Loved it.
That was amazing. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you haven't yet purchased your copy of our 365-day workbook, which we had mentioned earlier in this episode, I highly recommend you do so. It is by far the best tool that you can have in your corner if you're hoping to make serious positive change to your life this year. And other than that, subscribe. We are releasing inspiring interviews every single week, sometimes even twice a week. Thanks again for listening. If there's one thing I can remind you, it is that everything in life comes down to your mindset. It's a mindset.